Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today we have Darren Carrington, who utilizes over 25 years in radio and TV broadcasting to coach and train people globally on how to create clarity and structure in delivering their message, all while being comfortable and confident. So we're going to learn a little bit more how he does this and more. So, Darren, welcome.
Thank you, Byron. It's a real pleasure being on your show, and I really feel privileged to be here. Thank you.
Sure. So how did you get into the world of broadcasting and transform it? Because everyone has a journey, and this is really fascinating because people who are attracted to being in the media, there's some lure to it, and it seems to be different for every person.
A great question, and the simple answer to that is I started off in a way that was purely just a pipe dream, because I was a really, really shy individual going back a good few years ago. When I was a kid and growing up, I was really, really shy, very introverted. And I would say I'm still an introvert today, but I sort of manage that in a very different way. And I always had a fascination of the radio. And basically, my fascination stemmed from not so much of what came out of the radio speakers, but what went on behind the scenes and all of the gubbins inside to make what came out of the speakers come out of the speakers. And I was really sort of compelled by that and a real fascination around that. And as I started to get older, going through school, a friend of mine and myself, we almost joined forces to be mobile DJs. And I guess for 14-year-olds, we did a pretty good job at the time. Looking back at it, maybe there was a few things we could have changed. But my fascination with radio wasn't really a focus of me at that point, using that as a starting block to get into the industry. So I went through my sort of leaving school and getting into the world of employment. And this fascination of radio, whenever anything came on TV, I was just fixated on the screen, looking at, wow, is that what it's like inside a studio? If there was anything in print media, I was just blown away by it. Wow, I can just see myself being in that environment. And I started to look at what I needed to do to make that happen. And I don't know what it's like for the hospitals and medical situation in the US, but certainly in the UK, there was a big network of hospital radio stations, and they were just charitable organizations that were providing a service for patients. And whilst they were in there, during their stay there, their treatment and overcoming their illness, the hospital radio service would take a sustaining service throughout the day, but throughout the evening and the weekends, it would be live with these volunteer presenters and producers. So I joined my local hospital radio with a view to going in and, offering my services from a charitable perspective, because when you're thinking about patients who have maybe gone in there with something severely wrong with them, if you can alleviate their pain by giving them a request, hearing their names mentioned on the radio and just playing a song for them, that goes a long way. And that was really something that I aligned with. I'm very high in my altruism in terms of what I like to do for other people to help them. And that really aligned with that. Plus, it was also ticking some boxes for me to learn my craft or cut my teeth within radio. And I soon found that I was enjoying it and my confidence grew. And before long, I put my hat in the ring to present my own show. And before I went live, this was something that was causing me an immense amount of anxiety, because I used to have nightmares, wake up in a cold sweat thinking, oh no, the music's run out and I haven't got anything to sustain the flow of music. And it never ever happened in more than 25 years in my career, but it never happened. But it was something I was really fearful of. So fast forwarding, I started then to reach out to radio stations and connect, and I got my break and working in a very small station that was a part of a network. And then that network sort of picked me up and took me to the network center to do some work for them. I got employed as a sound assistant, and I gradually worked my way through and completely worked my way through the industry. As a presenter, producer, I ended up working for BBC Radio 1, mainly in the dance radio sector. working with the likes of Pete Tong, Trevor Nelson, Judge Jules, Danny Rampling. And these guys gave me a great insight, because that gave me a springboard on how I could then go in and present my own sort of dance music proposition to various companies and radio stations. And one of the stations that I really had a burning passion to go and work with, because it was working much like the American Forces Network. It was called British Forces Broadcasting Service. And they had at the time more than 23 stations scattered around the world from east to west. And they had a UK headquarters. And I went to them with a view to, look, this again is serving my altruistic tendencies, because I know that these guys are working away from home, their families, and they're on 6, 12-month tours, and it's tough. And if we could do something to try to relieve their hard graft during the evenings by playing a bit of music and giving them some mentions, then that's going to give me a great sense of satisfaction and fulfillment. So the company listened, they took me on, and I was doing a weekly show. And that weekly show then turned into a more permanent situation. So I was doing my weekly show, and they employed me full time. And that really led to me sort of going into the management sector of programming and management. And the more I got involved in the programming and the management of the radio station, setting up radio stations and launching radio stations, I sort of tended to take more of a back seat or back step away from being on air. And that was really causing me some pain. So I was trying to juggle the two. And it got to a point where, I mean, we are fast forwarding a bit now. I got to the point back in 2008, and I'd been with this company for about 12 years. And there wasn't really many more opportunities that were being opened up to me. And it was an awesome company, very stable company. And the people that were there in sort of senior management positions had been there for 25, 30 years. And it was almost like a glass ceiling. There was nowhere for me to go up. I could go sideways, but that wasn't enough for me. I wanted to do more. And I had an opportunity of coming to Dubai as the head of Radio 2 for Gulf News Broadcasting. So I came out, and again, coming from a non-commercial background with BFBS, then coming into a commercial sector for Gulf News Broadcasting was great, because it gave me another opportunity to really fine-tune all of those core skills that I'd learned along the way through both radio and TV, because BFBS had both services running side by side. So coming out here, the commercial opportunity here was just phenomenal. The radio sector was run very differently in terms of the radio sales. The radio sales dictated the programming to a very large degree, because if there's an opportunity to get some revenue coming in, let's just put it on the air. So I had a major job of trying to sort of educate my boss on creating that formatted station sound, and whatever we could do then to come up with revenue that would potentially fit that formatted sound would be something that we would welcome with open arms. So I worked very hard on trying to create that. So I then went out on my own as an independent radio consultant, and as a under contract as a consultancy company, I had the opportunity of designing and setting up a radio station for a broadcasting organization called Fujira Media Group, and that was in 2010. And this was literally designing a station from the ground up in terms of the format, the genre, staffing, everything. It was just literally a blank sheet of paper. And the contract was then extended to really sort of, once we set up and launched it, was to manage it ongoing and running the station. And it was great. It was the first and only rock radio station in the whole of the Gulf region. And it was really, really great, a great opportunity, because it really had the opportunity for me to pool all of my skills that I'd learned throughout my career along the way and more. So again, this continuous evolution within me for what's next, where do I go now? I started to look online, seeing how this whole online platform is starting to take hold. And the amount of coaches and entrepreneurs that were really applying themselves in this online capacity, but obviously trying to market the services, the products and their programs through the art of video. And you have to applaud them, because they're doing a great job. But it was evident that there was quite a few that needed some sort of support around that. So I thought I did a big mind map one day, and everything kept coming back to the whole broadcasting and all of the skills that I sort of really fine-tuned along the way through broadcasting and presentation, how it came back to it. And I thought, one day the penny just dropped, the light bulb came on, and I thought, that's it. I need to help these people through their video. And if I can help them in creating video with impact, so if we get to the point where all of the clutter is taken out and we use the core information within that to create the impact, and by polishing their skills as a presenter and connecting with the audience on the level that they need to be connecting on, which is that one-to-one, so they're talking to the audience and not at them. And that was really where the video impact coaching was born.
Now, that is powerful because so many people have a journey, but they don't necessarily have that epiphany moment where you can take all of the experience that you gained throughout your career and transform it into a way to help more people. Yeah, and it's something that I have, if I'm completely honest, Byron, I've laid awake at night thinking, what is it I need to be doing to apply this? And I'll just give you a very brief example. About 5 years ago, I went through a certification program for a psychometric assessment. Excuse me. And it was a whole suite of tools. And I went through this assessment training, which was like 5 days worth of certification training. And at the end of it, the guy who was running the training, he said, you have a unique niche here. He said, I'm really fascinated to see how you develop that. And I left that training scratching my head thinking, how am I going to use this? How am I going to apply what I've done here? I went through this certification purely because I felt it was something that would help me understand me at a deeper level. And I didn't have any inclination or idea as to how I would then use that within my business. But when I talk about video impact coaching now, I'm talking about, I know there are a lot of people out there helping other people to be more effective in their video production and how they communicate their message. But what I do, I work with people as part of my program. I work with people to understand the power of their own personality, because if we can understand the power of our own personality, we also then understand the power of our preferred presentation style, because that is obviously related to our personality. And whatever style of personality preference we have, there comes a preferred communication style associated with that. Now, Byron, if I was to ask you a very open question, how many people have you found throughout your life and your career so far that you really hit it off with compared to the amount of people that you maybe haven't hit it off with? And you could give me a figure on both counts, I'm sure. But when you start to analyze it, you think, well, actually, there are some people in this world that no matter how much I try to make the effort, I don't really get on with, I don't really hit it off with, and you don't necessarily know why. And that's probably because you've got a different communication preference, and so have they. And the two are not interacting with each other then, because they're two different styles. And once we start to understand ourselves and what our preferences are, and the way that we communicate, the words we use, the amount of words that we inject into a conversation, compared to some people who, if there are, let's give it an example, if somebody's more developed in their dominance or their decisive mechanism, they're going to be very short, sharp, and to the point. Where if somebody is more of a slower pace in preference of how they like to move through their environments, they're going to be very long, drawn out, very sincere, very slow at their delivery. And if they're trying to communicate with somebody of a high decisive or dominance dimension, they're going to lose them because they just want the short, sharp, and to the point facts. So if we're trying to communicate this in a video message, and we are a higher stabilizing dimension, and we're communicating to our viewer who's a higher dominance or decisive mechanism in terms of their dimension, they'll maybe tune in for 10 seconds and then they're gone. And as a higher S dimension, we are not even getting warmed up at that point. So it's the power of trying to understand who we are at a deeper level. This is all of a sudden that epiphany moment that this is how I can use that to really dig down and get down to the fact of who we are and how we show up to the world, and more importantly, how we show up to the world through video. And you hit on something there. I think people have to understand more about us with personalities, because too many people, I want to say, they're shouting when they're creating videos and putting out to the marketplace, and they're wondering, well, how come I'm getting a response? So how did you come across that notion that personalities matter when it comes to video?
And again, you've absolutely identified a crucial nugget there that is I guess the hinge point of success or failure. Because let's face it, if we are on that one-to-one, and broadcasting is about one-to-one, whether it be radio or TV, you're coming through the camera, you're coming through the microphone, and you're hoping, and your audience potentially is to the millions. But we want to communicate one at a time, one-on-one, to get to those millions. We want all of those millions to be viewing and tuning in, and they're watching what we do or listening to what we have to say on a one-to-one. But they're all there en masse. And if we are standing on a stage addressing a whole arena full of people, how many times do you see people actually shouting at that, unless it's maybe you two or something like that in the middle of one of their gigs. But, when it's more intimate through the power of broadcasting like TV or video or radio, it's on that one-to-one. So you don't need to shout. You need to be talking to the audience, to that viewer, as opposed to talking at them. And this is where that shift is. There is a huge difference between talking to, where you're just dumping stuff at that person as though you're almost preaching to them, and when you're talking to them, it comes out as that one-on-one conversation, and you're actually inviting them to be part of your whole conversation. And this is something that I really work on with clients, that, okay, we've gone through that whole getting to like posts and like videos, but now we need to work on the engagement. How can you talk to your viewers where you encourage them to get involved and engage in your, once you're no longer on the screen and delivering your message, how can you then engage them to come up with more and keep that conversation flowing and involve other people in that conversation through the thread?
I love that, because people have to make that transition from shouting to having a conversation. Because if you look at the number of videos you see online, and it's so many fall into that trap of where they're just shouting and hoping that maybe someone out here in the world of all 7.5 billion people will hear my message, instead of being specific and talking to a person.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what it comes down to. We are talking to, essentially our target is to connect with that one person, but en masse. So yes, connect with that one person, but multiply them by the millions. But we want to connect with that one person one-on-one, and then they will be multiplied to the millions to get our message across. And it's very interesting how once we start to go through and break down those different dimensions and those styles within those dimensions, those preferred communication styles, it's amazing how you get that aha moment coming on, and how we can be aware of how we might need to adapt to effectively communicate with somebody else. And I'll give you an example. I mentioned about the higher S. I am naturally a higher S. So I'm very warm, very engaging, and if I'm communicating with a higher D, I might, unintentionally, I might lose them, because I can see by their response that they're starting to lose interest or get distracted. So I then have to shut down, well, not shut down, but cut short what I would need to say to them, but deliver it in such a way that it's very assertively communicated to them. And I'll give you an example. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was trying to get I was working on a project, and I was working on a project that involved me liaising with 5 people in Lebanon. And one of the people in Lebanon, they had done the profile, and I was waiting to actually get on and do the full feedback with them. And I kept sending emails, and they kept responding to the emails, and we kept booking a time, and then at the last minute they would cancel or they wouldn't show up. And I don't tend to go through the report before I have the full feedback. There's a couple of things that I check to make sure that everything is how it should be in terms of the consistency in the answering, but I don't go through the details. I like to bring that to life together. I don't like to have the upper hand. And I thought, okay, for this, this had been going on for about 10 days, and I was concerned, because obviously there's value that's going to come from this for them. And I looked at the profile and I thought, okay, they're a higher D. So my higher S, in terms of my message through my communication of email, was, really like to get you to do this, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I kept getting cut short or, nipped in the bud. So I just picked up the phone and I said to this young lady, "Hi, Miriam, it's Darren. You know that we've been communicating. I was really, I was very assertive. I wasn't rude. I was very assertive, but I delivered the message within the way that she would then respond. And within 10 minutes, I had her on Skype doing the feedback. And she was completely blown away by the fact of the information that was coming out of that. And I said to her halfway through, Miriam, I just want to apologize for phoning you and being assertive the way I was with you. That is not normally who I am. But I took a sneak peek at your profile and I saw what your preferred communication style was. And I had to adapt my communication style to effectively connect with you. And as you know, within 10 minutes, I had you on a Skype call. So the essence of that example there, Byron, is the fact that if we are communicating with somebody through the power of video and we're not getting the response that we need, and our ideal demographic might be of a different dimension to us, then we have to change how we deliver that message to connect at an effective way to that particular demographic.
Indeed we do, and I think that's something people have to do a deep dive on, of understanding not only their personalities, but then understanding how other personalities, relate to them. So just like as you had to make that adjustment of cutting something short, because that person is decisive, is never going to want to listen to the long drawn out explanation for something, because they just care about the facts. Like, I need to know what's necessary to make a decision, versus, oh, sure, tell me a grand story. Because some people, they want to know it. They were like, oh, give me the epic saga. Others like, oh gosh, you're going, just shoot me now if you keep going.
That's absolutely true. And again, this is where that aha moment came from me when I did this certification. I was always interested in psychometric assessments, and there are so many on the market. I didn't really know which one to pursue. And somebody introduced me to this. It's called Innometrics. It's actually a suite of tools. So it looks at DISC, which is a preferred behavioral style measure assessment. And it also has a values index. So if we look at the DISC as how we behave, the values really tell us how that behavior is driven. So what motivates us to behave in such a way. And it also looks at how we think and make decisions. So once I started to understand this and see the power of it, I thought that's the one I need to be certified in. But when it all came together and I started to learn more about myself, and then I started to, because I'm quite retrospective introspective in character anyway, and always have been. And when I was starting to look at why maybe some communications I had in the past hadn't been successful, I started to understand why that could have possibly been. And, I'm constantly working on myself, as most of us are now. We're so inundated with information that we take that information, we start to use it on how we can improve ourselves. And the fact that I constantly now keep checking in with myself when I'm having conversations with people that I don't really know, or making communication for the first time, and I'm reading their body language, and I'm checking in on myself all the time to see what I need to do to adapt the style that I think will effectively connect with the person I have in front of me.
And that's important to do it, because the more people understand about the personalities, the better. So how does someone start learning about them? Because there's so many people that I want to see they're using outdated models of personalities, lumping people into too big of a categories. What made you decide to use the DISC assessment as a foundation versus some of the other platforms? You look at Myers-Briggs and so on.
I've heard so many people talk about MBTI, or the Myers-Briggs type indicator, and all sing its praises. But when we talk about personality types, you start to, or I looked at it and I thought, okay, if I know what I am as an MBTI, and I haven't gone through MBTI, but as I say, I know a lot of people who have. But if I know my personality type, what do I really do with that? And just having that question, I thought, okay, so I went into it in quite a deep way. If I'm looking at DISC and I know that this is my preferred behavioral styles, which would indicate that you do have a personality preference there as well, I can then, by working with the values index, I can start to see what drives that behavior. So that you can connect the dots between the two different tools. And then through the attributes index, so knowing how I think and make decisions. And if you think about the three dimensions that we we evaluate everything based on the science of Dr. Robert S. Hartman. We evaluate everything in 3 dimensions. It's either empathy, practical thinking, or systems judgment. Now, when we have the time to think about thinking, we can evaluate all 3 equally. But most of the time, we don't have that time to think about thinking. We are in what we call a high velocity environment, which is anything up to like 87% of our day. So we are going to be called by the loudest voice that is going to be our responder. So is it empathy? Is it practical thinking? Or is it systems judgment? Now mine, if you think about my altruism, that's one of my high internal motivators. That then drives the behavior for my higher S. But also, if we start to then look at my attributes index, my higher dimension, my master, if you like, is my empathy. And you think, so how does this play out in real life? Now, I'm going to give you a very real life scenario. Just a couple of weeks ago, where I live in Dubai, I live in a very local village. So I'm outside of the main city. I live in a very local village. And we have the guy that comes around delivering the gas once or twice a week. And the other week, but thinking about the temperatures, it's very hot here. The other week, we were running low on gas. So I was back and forth in and out of the house, and I could hear him coming around, ringing his bell. And I thought, okay, so I ran to the gate, and he's just next door. And I didn't have the keys with me, so I ran back. And I ran back to the gate, got the keys, unlocked it, and I didn't have the gas bottle ready. So I stuck my head out the gate, and I said, please come here next. Yeah, okay. So by the time I then went back in to get the gas bottle, he had reversed up to park outside the house, obviously didn't see me, and he started to drive off again. So as I came out with the gas bottle, he's driving off up the road. And I thought, okay, it's one of these like where you don't have time to think about thinking. So what was going through my mind was we're going to run out of gas. My empathy was making my decision for me. So I was wearing Crocs at the time. I've been working at home all day. I was wearing Crocs. I just kicked my Crocs off and I started running up the road. Now, bearing in mind, we were in the middle of summer. Okay, we're experiencing at the moment like 50 degrees Celsius.
Oh, no.
And I'm running up the road. I didn't give it a second thought. And I like to sort of regard myself as somebody who's fairly in tune with his, knowledge and, not a stupid person. But this was something very, very stupid. But it was something I didn't think about. I'm running up the road, and halfway up the road, I'm thinking, wow, my feet are getting pretty hot. I had nowhere to go. I had to keep running after this guy. And I ran up to the gate, to the gas man. And I said, about the gas. He said, yeah, I'm coming back. I said, well, I didn't know that. So my feet are on fire by this time. And I had to still run, probably about 700 or so meters down the road. And I had to run back. There's nowhere for me to go. And by the time I got back, my feet were on fire. And I blistered both soles of my feet. But I thought that's a really powerful moment there, because that was really showing how my empathy as my fully developed dimension of my attributes on how I think and make decisions when I don't have time to think about thinking. If I had time where the guy wasn't driving off up the road and I could easily evaluate all 3, practical thinking, systems judgment, and my empathy, there's no way on earth I would have kicked my Crocs off and run after a gas delivery truck. But when I thought that we might run out of gas, when's he going to come around again? I don't know. And if we are running out of gas, obviously cooking is going to be an issue. That whole empathy was being driven to make that decision. So when you can share this with people on how they show up on camera and how they think and make decisions, and maybe in terms of some of the things they say, some of the topics that they talk about when they're on camera, it's really, really powerful. So when you connect all of these 3 tools together, that's what was really my deciding factor on going for the inner metrics as opposed to just the one-dimensional MBTI.
Oh, and that's great, because you have to go to a deeper level with things. Once you understand the motivating factors behind someone's decisions, it's far easier to communicate with them. Because you look at how many people communicate on a one-dimensional level and never really think about what's the emotions behind a person's decision, what's truly driving them, so that you're putting the information in the manner that's going to resonate with them and prompt them to take action.
Exactly. And when we talk about sort of building confidence and being comfortable in front of the camera, the way, yourself, we're all being sort of backed into a corner now that we have to use video because the likes of Facebook are making it so that their algorithms are being set in such a way that anything that's not either a Facebook Live or a video is going to get sort of pushed down the pecking order in terms of the reach is likely to experience. So those people that are really anti about going in front of the camera, for whatever reasons, they're not feeling comfortable or confident, by understanding themselves at a really deep level and how their strengths can show up for them really helps to build that confidence and that whole comfortability, in terms of showing up on camera.
It is indeed. And I think people have to overcome that fear of being on camera, because just like you said, Facebook's putting the emphasis on video because it's the way communication's heading towards. So for people to become comfortable, what's something that the average person can begin doing to get over that fear? Because you look at some people like, oh no, I could never be on camera. Like there's this subconscious fear that's preventing them from doing it.
Well, again, if you remember earlier on when we first started our conversation, I said that I was a really shy individual. And when I expressed my desires to go into the world of radio, people looked at me with one of those sort of half-cocked looks thinking, really? How's that going to work? How's that going to work? But I guess my resolution around that at the time was, well, it's just me and a microphone. And when I started to get involved in that whole process of practicing, and I couldn't talk to the microphone. I was talking at it, and it just wasn't working. And I tried, and one day it clicked, and all of a sudden everything started to come together. So I'm using a personal experience of being a very, very shy individual who would not say a goose, but once you have the belief in yourself, I've shown the way that if you do it in such a step-by-step process. I used to walk around, I used to talk to myself in the car, I used to listen to other radio stations, and I would use the opportunity when songs would come on, I would talk over the intro to get up to the vocals and practice my craft inside the car when nobody else could hear me. And we are talking long before mobile phones were the raise that they are today. So there was no hands-free, there was nothing. So people would look at me when they're passing by on the sidewalk, and they would look at me to see, okay, this guy's obviously got a problem because he's talking to himself in the car. Right. But it really helps me in terms of getting that confidence level and also talking without getting a response and having the confidence to carry on that conversation, but a one-way conversation, if that makes sense. And I use that now, and I say to clients that I work with, look, you get up every morning, you go into the bathroom and you brush your teeth and you do what you do in the bathroom. Now, why don't you start to look at yourself in the mirror? Because when you're looking at yourself in the mirror, you can see your facial expressions, you can see the gestures, you can see exactly how you show up on camera. And just a little running commentary. So, hi, Darren, how are you today? Had a great night's sleep last night. So today we've got a fantastic day ahead. We're going to be doing this, and this. So we're going to start the day with a nice brushing of the teeth. This is all singing, all dancing toothpaste brand, and it's XYZ. This is my latest toothbrush, and just going through just a very light-hearted commentary of what your day ahead looks like. And I said, if you can just get through the comfort of talking to yourself without having to pause, waiting for that response to come back, you've cracked it. You've got over that major hurdle, because that's essentially what you will be doing when you show up on camera. You're seeing yourself in the mirror, so you're very comfortable and relaxed at seeing how you show up, because let's face it, if you show up to a group of people, they don't have any judgment on you. Some people might, but the majority will not have any judgment of you because they've got no prior experience of you. So as you show up on video, it's the same. People have got no preconceptions about who that person on that other side of the camera is. So just show up and do what you do. And this is a method that is starting to work really, really well with some of my clients, because all of a sudden they feel really confident in front of the mirror in their own environment of their bathroom, something that is very familiar to them. Every single day they go in and out of that bathroom. So they're very comfortable in that space. And that comfort zone, if you like, extends to when they get in front of the camera.
And I love that, because it's something so simple that anybody can do. And it's so powerful because if you look at any of the live streaming platforms, especially on Facebook, you're looking at yourself. So that way people can become comfortable seeing themselves, practice, giving a presentation, being on video, seeing their mannerisms, seeing their facial expressions, realizing, oh, so that's what I look like. Instead of that first time they do it, everybody in the world is out there. But I think what I think that people just have to overcome is that you just get more and more comfortable as you do it. They're just like the journey you had. You didn't start off where you are now. It was a journey you went on from being the person that had to practice in their car where people were wondering, what is this guy doing? But it was a journey.
Absolutely. And again, I'm a very transparent person. I can tell you that I started off doing overnights. My first break on professional radio, I was doing overnights. That was like 2 to 6 a.m. And I was doing 2 to 6 a.m. on a Friday night into Saturday and a Saturday night into Sunday morning. And it was a very busy show because it was a network show. I was going out on 5 different stations. And you got all of the night workers, you got people coming back from a good night out. And, it was a very busy show. And I got to the point where early on, I was in the middle of saying something and I lost my train of thought and I just froze because I just got to this point, what do I say next? And I just froze. And you can't do that on live radio because it creates gaps.
Right.
But I filled the gap and I just hit a jingle or something like that, but I recomposed myself and got back. But that was a massive learning because it showed me more preparation was required in knowing what you're going to say. And knowing what you're going to say is the key to that consistency in the flow of the delivery of the message. Now, you don't necessarily have to have it scripted, but you need to know what it is you're trying to get to in terms of that message you're trying to communicate. And if you know that, the vocabulary will come to get you to from start to finish off that particular piece of message that you're trying to communicate. But that was a very powerful moment for me, and that was early on in my career. I thought, there's no way I can let that happen again. No way. And it just showed that there was more preparation that was required in terms of, okay, if I start off here, how am I going to get to there? What am I going to tick in the middle to get to make sure that all of those dots are connected from start to finish of that message?
It's great that you say that because so many people, it's a sticking point for doing live video. They're thinking, I need to script it out. I need to know everything I'm going to say. But the reality is it's going to change, especially in the live video format, because you're going to have people that are going to engage with you. So even if you wanted to follow a script, it's going to change based on the dynamics. You might realize that, people are providing feedback in one way. So they want to know more about another area as they're engaging with you, because that's the whole purpose. It's live versus just being a scripted. If you want it to be scripted, well, that's when you record the video in advance.
Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, you hit a really poignant moment there in anyone's journey. The hassle factor of going through the recorded process, and I call it the hassle factor because it gives us the opportunity, if we feel that it's not quite how we would like it, we get the opportunity to go back and start again. Whereas when it's live, if you get that sort of brain freeze like I had, you've just got to pick yourself up and carry on with it because there's nowhere for you to go. You have to keep the ball rolling. Whereas if you're doing that and it's a recorded message and you feel that, okay, there's a slight gap there that I don't think I can edit out, then I'll just hit stop and I'll start recording again. And you get to the point of perfection is something that you're constantly chasing. And even if you go live and you make a slight glitch, that's more natural. It doesn't necessarily come up as being, imperfect in any way. It's more natural. And the glitches, we all have glitches in everyday communication at times. So the live stuff is, now that we have these beautiful platforms such as Facebook Live, this live streaming platform is just really, it's a godsend.
And I think when it comes to that preparation, something that's a great tool, something people can realize is that unless you tell people you made a mistake, they don't know it's a mistake. So even if you mess up somehow, go with it. They're not going to notice anyway. No,
and the worst thing you can do is actually highlight your mistakes. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that. As you just said, the person who's watching that live at the time didn't really pick up on that until you just drew their attention to it.
Right, exactly. I laugh at times that I'll do a Facebook Live and I'm sitting on my couch and my cat will just out of nowhere just like sits behind me, just starts doing all sorts of stuff, and I go with it. I might be giving a tip and say, this tip is so important that even my cat finds it interesting. So if she finds it interesting, you really got to pay attention to this, and I'll just go with it.
Cat photo on video bombing. I love that.
Right. In the beginning, I'd be so like, you got to be kidding me. The rest of the time, you're ignoring me, but now you want to come and play, so you just got to go with it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm going to be watching out for your lives from now on.
Yeah, stay tuned. The cat will be video bombing it soon enough.
I think you've got a whole genre of videos lives that you can be doing just cat bombing now.
Oh, yes, exactly. Okay, applications being accepted for cats that know how to behave on camera because, like, how did you get a 20% boost in viewership? It was the cat. Seriously, it was all the cat. People love cat videos. I'm the accessory in this one.
Look, if that's your gimmick now, and that's going to be your key to greater success, then go with it.
Right, exactly. Of course, I say this now. The next time I'll do a live video, she's like, whatever. It doesn't do anything.
Well, I mean, I'm with you on the cats. I've now got cats. I've had cats for a couple of years, but I'm still learning about cats. But they are very unpredictable in what they do and don't do. And if you want them to do something, chances are you won't be able to get them to do it. And if you don't want them to do something, chances are they'll show up.
Right, exactly. So it happens when it happens. So I'm always impressed, like when I see movies, they have cats in them, they're doing things like, and in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, how many takes did that really take to make it happen? Like, okay, take 217. Come on, you silly cat, do it. But no matter what, with video, you just have to go with it. Because with live, it's the most powerful thing right now to grow a business. So the more people can quickly get over any fears and dive in, the better.
Yeah, and if you just sort of rewind the clock, even just 2 years where this wasn't available, and it's just a phenomenal platform that we have available for absolutely nothing, no investment required whatsoever, and we can just press the button, put ourselves out in front of so many people. That is a phenomenal power at our fingertips, and we should be all using it. And again, some people are going to be more embracing of that whole technology than others, and we have to help support the ones that are not ready to embrace it at this moment in time, because technology is driving us to the point where we need to embrace it, because the world is waiting for us to show up on this platform.
Exactly. Because the world's constantly evolving like this, if a business wants to stay relevant and keep attracting customers, they have to take advantage of the latest technology, how people are communicating. And it doesn't mean going from platform to platform, but it just means embracing what's happening now. Like, you look at video is the prevalent way for people to communicate with an audience, and then also for it to be engaging on a mobile device, because you look at how many people around the world connect to the internet from a phone and not a laptop or a desktop computer anymore.
It's, again, if you just fast forward even 2 years from here, where's it going to end up from here? It's amazing. It's exciting as well. Very exciting.
Right, exactly. So if you're not keeping up with where things are going, it's very easy to be left behind, and then pretty soon a business can be outdated and ultimately have to shut their doors because they didn't keep up.
Well, I was working with a client back in the UK, actually, at the end of April, early part of May. And that was exactly what happened. He was very much an analog in terms of broadcasting spares that he was selling to the industry. And he didn't keep it up to speed, if you like, with moving into the whole digital world. And it got to the point that he turned around one day and the gap was just so great. He couldn't get up to speed with what he needed to get up to. He had to close his business. He's now working for somebody else. But they're utilizing his experience in terms of what his knowledge will allow him to help them to develop as they move forward. But, by taking his eye off the ball and not keeping up with technology, it cost him very dearly.
Wow. And that's unfortunate, but it's something that people have to do. It's just embracing it. So as we begin wrapping up everything here, what's one thing you recommend for business owners, entrepreneurs to do to truly embrace using video in their business?
when we think about video, the first thing we think of is somebody standing there doing a headshot, and like a talking headshot where you've got this message or somebody is delivering that message. The beauty of video and communicating that message, there are so many different formats of how you can deliver your message through the power of video. Even if it's from a slideshow, if it's down to a whiteboard sketch video, or you have that person talking. I mean, I showed a piece of software that I bought called Reflector 2, and which is just really a mirroring software that you can basically then link your smartphone or your tablet to your computer, hit record, and everything that you do on your phone is then recorded, and it's really high quality. And I was just demonstrating how, we have this reversing image frustration when we're doing a Facebook Live. Everything we look at is in reverse. I was doing a tutorial on how to get over that. And I just used this software. And yes, in the end, when I went through the Facebook Live process to get to the actual options of changing that horizontal flip, you could see me. But for the most part, I wasn't actually on screen at all. It was just my voice, and I was doing stuff on the phone. So there are so many different ways that you can embrace the power of video. And if you're not comfortable with standing in front of the camera and delivering your message, there are other ways. And I'm happy to help anyone to identify what some of those ways to move forward and get your message heard might look like for you. And again, thinking about how that is congruent to your business as well. There will be a format of video that would apply in a greater way to your actual business and how you want to communicate your message to your potential audience.
Oh, excellent. That's what matters most. So I want to thank you for coming to the podcast today and sharing wealth of wisdom. How can people learn more about what you do and reach out to you?
I've got a video survival kit that I would just love to give away. And when we talk about video survival kit, a lot of people are put off with embracing video because they feel that they've got to invest heavily in a full-blown studio setup. Well, that's not necessarily the case. So if you want to go through a very straightforward process and look at what you do need to just get you up and running very inexpensively, please go to videoimpactcoach.com. That's videoimpactcoach.com. And there's a free survival kit there that will help you to get up and running in no time. Because most of us have all of that equipment at our bedside or in our bag, in our pockets, anyway, so we can just get running at the latest opportunity. I also have a group where I've started to build the community. And as we record this podcast today, Byron, we reached the number of 300 members, which I'm really, really proud of. It's taken a while to get to that number of 300, but it's a community that is just really looking to embrace video, but they're on the edge of the ledge, if you like. They want to take the plunge, but they're not quite ready. And some of them have gone through this community that we're building to help them take the next step, but they can take that leap. And that leap of faith is not allowing them to drop. They're now flying. So that's on facebook.com/groups/better videos, more clients.
Oh, that's awesome. So once again, I want to thank you for coming into the podcast today and sharing your wealth of wisdom.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for the invitation. It's been wonderful speaking with you, and I hope your listeners have got some great value from it today.
Oh, definitely.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.